What up with the YouTube world? You in the house with your boy Chin Checker. You already know we're going to get right into one of these reaction videos. I first like to say thank you to all my subscribers. Thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you for all the comments. But without further ado, we're going to get right into this reaction video. This one's about a corrupt cop getting a life sentence. I guess finally some retribution. But without further ado, let's get right into it.
Cold case that turned hot again after more than 20 years.
Okay.
The evidence led detectives to one of their own.
6 corrupt cops gone crazy after getting life sentences.
Shout out to
when the boys
Lackluster.
in blue turn in their badges for a lifetime of orange jumpsuits, you just know they have some of the most horrific crimes under their belt. Disclaimer. Number 1. Joe Ferrari. Meet Joe Ferrari. He was charged with murder by torture, deprivation of liberty, and abuse of power. Thai Police Chief Colonel Joe Ferrari's real names were neither Joe nor Ferrari. It was Titizen Uttanapan. He'd gotten the nickname because of the collection of 29 luxury vehicles he had parked at his sprawling stately mansion.
Ballin'.
One of these cars was a rare $1.3 million Lamborghini Aventador Anniversario. There were only 100 of them in the world. He also had a Ferrari, 4 Porsches, 6 Mercedes-Benz, 3 Audis, and a Bentley. But believe it or not, how this civil servant could afford such a lavish lifestyle was not what brought this dirty cop to the public eye. In August 2020, Joe and 6 other deputies tortured and murdered a 24-year-old drug dealer right inside a Thai police station. The drug dealer and his
crazy.
girlfriend had been arrested after drugs were found in their possession. He and Joe had already come to an agreement on the price to pay to have all the charges dropped. But now, Joe wanted double of what they agreed on, about $30,000 more. The suspect refused. So, Joe did what any other officer would do under the full glare of light in a police station. He covered the man's head with a plastic bag and had other deputies hit him while another wrapped a bag around the suspect's neck, trying to force him into accepting the new price. The suspect struggled and then he fell from the chair and went quiet. After several minutes, the officers tried unsuccessfully to resuscitate him. Colonel Joe tried to cover his tracks and ordered the men to take the body to the hospital and tell the doctor the death was caused by a drug overdose. They almost got away with it. Then, weeks later, a video of the incident was leaked online. Joe went on the run and crossed the borders into neighboring Myanmar as his subordinates were quickly rounded up. He later surrendered and was arrested and charged. They all pleaded not guilty. Joe claimed it was an accident and he only wanted information out of the suspect to bring down the drug business. Inside the courtroom before the verdict, Joe looked healthy and was even chuckling with guards, but closed his eyes as the sentence was read. Guilty. He was given the death sentence, but it was later reduced to life imprisonment because he had tried to revive the suspect and had paid for the funeral expenses for the family. 5 of the other 6 officers involved in the case were found guilty of murder and also received life sentences. A 7th, who testified against them and didn't participate, got 5 years and 4 months. Joe Ferrari might be the dirtiest police chief of all time, but they didn't call Roger Rogerson the dirtiest cop in Australia for nothing. Number 2, Roger Rogerson and Glenn McNamara. Meet Roger Rogerson and Glenn McNamara. They were charged with first-degree murder and possession of drugs. In May 2014, 20-year-old Jamie Gow walked into Unit 803 of the Rent-A-Space storage facility at Padstow in Sydney, Australia, along with 2 other men. He had 3 kilograms of an illicit drug on him worth $19 million. At the end of the day, Jamie planned to walk away from the deal a very rich man. Little did he know that he would not be walking anywhere at all. He was murdered right in the shed. CCTV footage of the scene identified the men as New South Wales detective Roger Rogerson and Glenn McNamara.
Wow,
At Glenn's
detectives.
apartment, officers found a pillowcase containing 3 kilograms of the missing drug. Glenn and Roger were immediately arrested. 2 days later, Jamie's body was found floating off a beach in Cronulla. At trial, these seasoned officers with years of experience turned on each other to save their skin. But there was enough evidence implicating both men in planning the murder and robbery for months. Glenn had 27 meetings with the 20-year-old at a hotel, all caught on tape, and Roger's clothes had gunshot residue. There was also the CCTV shot of the 2 getting rid of Jamie's body. For detectives, these 2 weren't great at covering their tracks, and this was not even the first murder that Roger had been implicated in. Back in the 1980s, he killed a man for robbing a dealer who was under police protection. The witness later turned up dead. Another time, Roger tried to kill another officer to protect a drug dealer. Roger is easily Australia's dirtiest cop. He told anyone who would listen his favorite song, "The people I shot don't go to the hospital, they go straight to the morgue," which is the only way these two will ever get out of prison. 75-year-old Rogers and 57-year-old Glenn were found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. Rogers and Glenn were as dirty as they come, but they're nowhere near as stupid as Jeffrey Moreland, who targeted the one person who would recognize him. Number 3, Jeffrey Moreland. Meet Jeffrey Moreland. He's been charged with 2 counts of murder and assault. For 2 years, the investigation into who murdered Kara Jo Roberts in Harrisonville, Missouri had gone nowhere. The 30-year-old mother of 2 had been found dead in her bathtub with the water running. Kara had been murdered by a gunshot wound. All investigators had to go on was DNA and a fingerprint left on a roll of duct tape that didn't come back to anyone in the system. 2 years later, the DNA linked to another murder. 75-year-old Nina Whitney, who lived in Kansas City. She was found at the bottom of the stairs in her home, a victim of a stabbing. Like Kara, the bathtub had been left running. Was a serial killer on the loose? However, unlike Kara's murder, neighbors in the area had seen a suspicious man in his 50s with a limp and a black Jeep parked by her house. Investigators got a sketch of the suspect. Nina's daughter took one look at it and knew exactly who it was. An ex-boyfriend she had last seen in 1984, Jeff Moreland, an officer with the Harrisonville Police Department. For weeks, Jeffrey evaded officers who tried to get his DNA. Then he got arrested for another crime in a different county after a woman reported that he'd assaulted her. Harrisonville officers seized their chance and swooped in for the DNA. It came back a match to the woman he'd assaulted, as well as the DNA that was found on both Kara and Nina. Jeffrey Moreland was arrested and charged with both murders. In 2013, he was found guilty of Kara's murder. Cold and emotionless, he looked on as he was sentenced to life in prison with an additional 50-year jail term. Realizing the jig was up, Jeffrey pleaded guilty to Nina's murder and was handed a 20-year sentence along with a 10-year sentence. Justice caught up very quickly with Jeffrey Moreland, but Stephanie Lazarus hit her tracks so well that it took almost 30 years for justice to catch up. But you know what will help us catch up to 100,000 subscribers? You, subscribing to my channel right now. Thank you. Number 4, Stephanie Lazarus. Meet Stephanie Lazarus. She was charged with first-degree murder. In December 1985, 29-year-old Sherry Rasmussen got married to John Rutan. But 3 months into the marriage, the newlywed couldn't shake the feeling that someone was stalking her. 3 months into his marriage, John returned home to find his wife's car gone and her dead inside. Sherry had been fired numerous times and there were deep bite marks on her left arm. The house looked like it had been robbed and neighbors reported a rash of robberies by 2 Latinos. Detectives thought the 2 crimes were connected. They were never able to find the 2 men and the case went cold. 23 years later, the cold case unit took a swipe at the case. They got DNA from a bite mark on Sherry's arm, but instead of leading them to a male robber, the DNA pointed to a female. The investigation led them to one of their own, Stephanie Lazarus, a star detective in the department. She'd been seeing John on and off before he met Sherry and started stalking Sherry and threatening her. Stephanie's DNA was a match to the DNA found on Sherry's body. They lured her into a room and tried to get her to confess in front of a hidden camera.
Do you know John Rutan?
John Rutten?
Rutan.
Oh yeah, I went to school with him.
Were you guys friends? Close friends?
Yeah, we're very close friends. I mean, what's this all about?
Stephanie was arrested and charged with after eluding justice for 26 years, Stephanie was found guilty and sentenced to 27 years to life.
The jury in the above entitled action find the defendant, Stephanie Eileen Lazarus, guilty of the crime of Sherry Rasmussen.
Jealousy got Stephanie Lazarus locked up, but what greed made Carl Waldo do would make her case look like child's play. Number 5, Carl Walden. Meet Carl Walden. He was charged with 15 counts, including first-degree robbery and drug trafficking. On the 4th of July, 1998, while many people were celebrating, Sam Saffer's family faced the news that he was dead. His body had been found in a bush near a deserted parking lot. The investigation into his murder went nowhere. Then, a jailhouse informant told officers that a crime ring had been operating right under their noses, led by Carl Walden, an officer with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. He was a hardworking cop with a sparkling record of arrests who was on his way to becoming sheriff. But underneath, Carl was as dirty as they come. In 1996, after joining the narcotics unit, Carl, along with officers Jason Poe, Reginald Bones, and Eric Sinclair, teamed up with a local drug dealer, Carl's brother-in-law, Officer James Swift Jr., to rob drug dealers of money and cocaine. They spent the money on cruises, cars, and nightclub parties. They went a step further and started targeting innocent civilians. Officer Eric worked off-duty as a security guard at a bank branch where Sammy had accounts and noticed that either Sammy or his nephew came in on Fridays to make large cash withdrawals. So he got a drug dealer to rob Hassan just as he left the bank and made away with $50,000. The drug dealer later turned up dead. Eric told his partners in crime about his score, and the three came up with a plan to steal from Sammy again. 2 months later, Sammy Safar had just withdrawn $51,000 from the bank and was driving back when Carl pulled him over in his patrol car. Sammy was handcuffed and put in the back of the police car. The plan was to leave the money in Sammy's car for the other officers to get, but Sammy was onto him and insisted on taking the money with him. Carl retrieved the bag of money, put it in the back seat, and started to drive. Then he called another officer and said the ominous words, "He's seen my face. I've got to take him out." Carl took Sammy to a deserted parking lot where he murdered Sammy by choking him to death with a rope. In December 2000, Carl was arrested and charged along with his entire crew. Together, they faced 26 counts. In exchange for their testimony, the officers negotiated plea deals and got lesser sentences. In January 2009, Carl stared coldly ahead as he was found guilty and given 4 counts of life imprisonment. He was also ordered to pay $58,900 in restitution. Carl Walden had many officers testify against him, like Detective William Bear, but William had no idea that his day in court was coming fast when he took the bench. Number 6. William Bear. Meet William Bear. He was facing 5 charges, including first-degree murder, kidnapping with a weapon, and armed robbery. In March 2018, the almost 20-year cold case of Saad Kawaf was reopened. Saad, a convenience store owner, had been brutally murdered in the garage of his home in the gated community of Deerwood, Minnesota back in 1999. All they had were the DNA profiles of the man and woman involved in the attack. They sent the DNA samples through a family tree DNA, and it led right back to an officer in the department, William Bear, and his ex-wife, Melissa Schaefer. William was a detective with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. He was there for 27 years and retired in 2002, then started his own business, the William R. Bear Investigation. At one time, one of Jacksonville's top private investigation agency. At the time of Saad's murder, William was working on a financial crimes task force and was assigned to a case with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement and the FBI. The case involved Saad, who was avoiding paying taxes by depositing just under $10,000 at the bank each time. William was meant to conduct surveillance at Saad's bank, but when William found out that Saad regularly kept a huge bulk of the cash at his country club home in Deerwood, he and his wife at the time were surveilling Saad's home for a completely different reason. On the night of May 17th, 1999, they made their move. Michael attacked Saad with a knife in his garage while Melissa forced his wife, Samar, to give them the money. When Samar handed over just $500 from her purse, William held a knife to her neck, and Melissa told her that she knew there was money in the house because they'd been to the house that week. The terrified woman led them to a kitchen cabinet where $53,000 was taken. Samar's hands and mouth were duct taped, and she was tied to a chair before the two left while Saad bled out in the garage. 21 years after Saad's murder, 64-year-old William and 50-year-old Melissa were arrested and charged with murder. Melissa pled guilty in exchange for testifying against William.
Are those the crimes that you're pleading guilty to today, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
She was later sentenced to 30 years. Finally, to avoid the death penalty, William pled guilty to all charges. At his sentence hearing, his attorney tried to play up William's achievements, which only offended the judge.
He was a JSO veteran for 27 years. He served in the homicide bomb squad. He was a field training officer, patrol, corrections, inspections, intelligence, burglary, and on the motorcycle squad.
William looked on as he was given 3 concurrent life sentences.
Gotta hold him. So there you have it, YouTube. Another version of these corrupt, crooked cops. One thing I really do like about this, they have to pay their retribution to society by going to jail. I'm not saying everybody's perfect, but hey, if you're a cop, man, you're supposed to be held to a higher standard than us. I'm going to tell you like this, man. If you like this type of video, you like this type of comment, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Shout out to Lackluster channel, man. You guys do a great job in compiling the information and the data. I'm just reacting to it. I appreciate doing it. I like putting these police under the microscope. I'm sorry to say, but everybody got to pay, man. If they stealing, robbing, gangsters doing all this stuff they doing, murdering people, they got to go to jail just like anybody else. But thank you. I appreciate it. Please like and subscribe. Check out the website with the music. Peace. God bless. I'm out.